Okay, everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Blackest Heart and The Forgetting Moon, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reading C.J. Box. Now, I'm not reading it. I already read it. I'm going to be reviewing C.J. Box, Back of Beyond. Now, this is book number 1 in his what you would call his Highway series, which is about the detectives Cody Hoyt and Cassie Duell. This is a different series entirely from the Joe Pickett series that I've been reviewing. I think I've reviewed 12 or 13 of the Joe Pickett books. In fact, I got the entire Joe Pickett series up here on my top shelf right there. Anyway, you can see those. And you can see my reviews of those books on my channel elsewhere. Just type in my last name, Durfee, right there. And Joe Pickett, those 12 reviews will show magically up on your YouTube screen. Anyway, let's get to the Back of Beyond. So, if you followed my channel, you know that C.J. Box is my new favorite writer. And the Joe Pickett series, it is my new favorite mystery series. In fact, Joe Pickett, that series is so damn good that it's now ranked in my top 3 mystery series of all time. Right there with Harry Bosch by Michael Connelly and the Dennis Lehane's Kenzie and Gennaro series. I mean, Joe Pickett, he's my main man. This book is a lot different than Joe Pickett. So whereas Joe Pickett is sort of this naive game warden who sort of, he's like a real do-gooder. He always does the right thing. He sort of makes mistakes as he goes along because he's just such a nice guy. Well, Cody Hoyt, on the other hand, is more of a reckless mistake. I mean, Cody Hoyt is an investigator also, but he's an ex-Colorado investigator or detective that's moved up to Montana because he got into trouble in Colorado as a detective because he's reckless. He's arrogant, extremely arrogant, and he purposefully makes mistakes. He's like just one of those renegade cops. He's not like Joe Pickett at all. The exact opposite of Joe Pickett. In fact, one of Hoyt's good friends describes him as this. He's a loose cannon. He's crazy. He's violent. He's unpredictable. But he's sharp. And he's unrelenting in solving murder cases. So that's who Hoyt is. So we've got an entirely different protagonist we're dealing with. And what happens is at the very start of this story, he's traveling to a crime scene of a burnt cabin. Or he doesn't know that it's a crime scene or what it is. He just knows that some people have stumbled across a burnt cabin. They think they saw a dead body in the cabin or in the rubble. So they go to investigate. He calls his good friend Larry Olson to come help him, and as they go through this cabin, they discover there is a body there, and Hoyt also discovers that this body he knows the person, even though it's charred. By the way, some of the greatest descriptions of burnt bodies are in this book. Stephen King-like descriptions. Clive Barker grotesque-like descriptions. The descriptions of burning bodies and what happens to bodies when they burn is absolutely worth just the price of the book alone. Anyway, I'm morbid like that, though. Anyway, what happens is Hoyt discovers that the body is a friend of his. Not only just a friend, but his AA sponsor. Because Hoyt, unlike Joe Pickett, who's a do-gooder, would never get drunk or smoke or do an illegal drug, Hoyt, on the other hand, has a problem with these things, and he's in AA, and his AA sponsor is a guy named Hank Winters, and Hank Winters just happens to be the dead dude in the burnt rubble, and there we get the mystery, okay? And then things shift perspectives to Hoyt's son, And Hoyt's son is a teenager, and Hoyt's son is off on this sort of camp adventure, camp out with a bunch of other teenagers and sort of adult guides in the Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming. So this book takes place. Hoyt is in Montana and then we shift down to Yellowstone with the stuff, and then there's bad things going on in the camp out with his teenage son that relate to what's happened with the burnt body of his AA friend. And that's all the plot that I'm going to give you. Normally, I would have really enjoyed, I don't know why, that the fact that we were jumping from Hoyt's perspective to his teenage son's perspective and back and forth. Because with his teenage son, we get a lot of teenage characters that we kind of have to keep track of, and then we go back to Hoyt and then his son and then Hoyt and his son, and then things all come to a head at the end. But for some reason, I don't know why, but the Yellowstone campout version, I enjoyed following Hoyt more than his teenage son. That's all I'm going to say. Let me read the back of this so you can get a better idea of what this book is about. Cody Hoyt, although a brilliant cop, is an alcoholic struggling with 2 months of sobriety when his friend Hank Winters turns up dead in a remote mountain cabin. At first, it looks like suicide. But Cody knows Hank better than that. Cody digs deeper into the case. All roads lead to foul play. After years of bad behavior with his department, Cody is in no position to be investigating a homicide, but he will stop at nothing to find out who murdered Hank and why. When clues found at the scene link the murderer to an outfitter leading tourists on a multi-day wilderness horseback trip in Yellowstone National Park, Cody is desperate to get on the trail and stop the killer in his tracks. There's only one catch. His own son, Justin, is among the tourists on this trip. So anyway, now on one of the most remote places on Earth, Cody must enter a deadly cat and mouse game with a ruthless enemy who seems to know his every move. I like the Joe Pickett novels better. I'll just be straight up with you. I like Joe Pickett as a character better than Cody Hoyt. Not that Cody Hoyt was bad. Maybe a little cliche. That's the reason I love Joe Pickett so much, is he was not your cliche, troubled, drunk detective. He was just a do-gooder game warden. And maybe I just, after 12 Joe Pickett novels, maybe I just fell in love with Joe Pickett and his family and all of the stuff that he was going through, that it was just hard for me to dial that back and step into the shoes of a new character by C.J. Box. I hear that The Highway, book number 2 of this series, which I hear that that's 10 times better than this book. And that's where this series really starts to find its groove. In fact, it found its groove so well that they made a TV show out of this series called Big Sky, starring, one of my TV crushes, Catherine Winnick. And then Ryan Phillippe plays Cody Hoyt. Anyway, so if you've ever seen Big Sky, it's about these books. And I think there's 5 books in this series, whereas there's like about 22 or 23 Joe Pickett books. There's 5 books in this series. So now the question is, I would give this about a 7 out of 10. Whereas the Joe Pickett books get 10s out of 10s. This is a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed reading it. The question is, do I continue on? Do I buy the other 4 books in the series? I mean, I bought 23 Joe Pickett novels. Do I buy the other 4 Cody Hoyt and Cassie Duell books? We shall see. We shall see. I'm kind of leaning towards getting them. But then again, I buy so many books. Why wouldn't I get them? Anyway, that is my review of C.J. Box, Back of Beyond.